Near mint condition, the home of collected editions. Oh my gosh, look at that panel of Batman. You have the absolute, you have the deluxe. DC Comics firing on all cylinders.
What's a Scooby-Doo? We're coming after you. We're gonna solve that mystery on near mint condition. Forgive me for being a little bit off on that F sharp minor, but I am Dom of X, Near Mint Condition Manager, CR.com editor, and today we've got an overview. The Scooby Apocalypse Omnibus had many a misconception for this specific omnibus, but I will get to that in a second. Let's go ahead and take a look at the back, front, side, everything else before we get to that. Here is a look at the front. This is a little bit different from the one. Yes, this is a completely different one. Completely different cover than the one that was solicited in the previews way back when. It has been a couple of months, but this is the front of the cover with Jim Lee, Alex Sinclair. No Scott Williams on the inks for the cover this time, but this is what we do have here as far as that is concerned. If we flip it to the side, this is a look at the spine of the book, of course, with who else than one and only Scooby-Doo filling in on the pinup of the spine and some monsters that might have you set up in question. And then a look at the back of the dust jacket. We can see not only the price, not only the ISBN, but also the synopsis and the horrors that are going to be troubling our favorite detective gang in this specific book. Of course, this is Scooby-Doo, Shaggy, Velma, Daphne, Fred. Let's go ahead and flip it over back to the front and remove the dust jacket. And if I may, right after I take off this dust jacket, for whatever reason it's not cooperating with me. It is the end of the world. Here on the left hand side, on the right hand side we got Zoinks. It's the apocalypse with Velma, I keep saying Velma holding on to Scooby for dear life. This is the cover that was placed on the previews for the first time that we got a chance to see this omnibus. It is still Jim Lee, it's still Alex Sinclair, and drawn in 2016, which is of course the year that DC Rebirth kicked off a relaunched DC universe. This is a look at the spine, not too dissimilar from the spine that we have here on the dust jacket, although you will notice that on the spine we do have, again, same pattern, same monsters, but no Scooby on the spine. So a little bit of a difference there, if we may. And then if we flip it to the back, another Jim Lee cover. This was, of course, a concept created by Jim Lee, but we'll get to all of that in a minute. Let's go ahead and crack open the book. Let's go ahead and examine the book ourselves. Before we get to that, I just want to show off the binding. Even if only for a bit, and if I can get the focus on it, there is very, very, very heavy glue. It is glued binding. You can see that the glue, it is stuck on there as tight as it can possibly be. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and get kicking down to the scuba-fying. If we open up the front flap, we will be introduced to Scooby and Velma, and then on the back we have the rest of the gang over a green headshot. Of course, the green headshot, they are part of the apocalypse. Again, we will get to that in a second. So that is what both of the end sheets have as far as that is concerned. And if I can just flip to the first page, this is Scooby Apocalypse Omnibus with Shaggy And well, the whole entire gang looking at us. Scooby looking a little bit creepy there. We can flip to the creators in question. We do have Keith Giffen and J.M. DeMatteis for the main writers. Heath Corson does the Adam Ant backups in the series. Again, we'll get to that in just a bit. Howard Porter, Chris Batista, Ben Caldwell, Howard Shake, and Dale Eaglesham, Pat Olive, Jander Sema, Rick Leonardi, Tom Gwen. You got Jose Marzan Jr. on the inks. Tom Mandrick filling in for an issue, which was definitely a surprise to see. Guy Vasquez, Ron Wagner. Lots and lots and lots. Phil Jimenez, lots of amazing talent as far as the interiors are on this book. Got Hi-Fi mainly on colors, but are also joined by Will Quintana, who was also coloring Doug Mankey on Superman Rebirth at this moment of time. John Rauch, Jeremy Lawson, and Kelsey Shannon. Nick J. Napolitano, Travis Lanham, and Ken Bruzenak are on the letters. Travis Lanham now works for Virtual Calligraphy as one of Marvel's main letterers. Jim Lee and Alex Sinclair, of course, the cover artists. We still have, of course, some Justice League characters that pop up here. Maybe not in the main series, but they do pop up. After all, this is Warner Brothers, right? And this is all based on a concept by Jim Lee. Here is a look at the editorial information page and the copyrighted material information page. You do have this being printed over at the printers in Transcontinental Interglobe, Canada. And then on the right-hand side, we do have the table of contents. And there are no page numbers in this book, with the exception of quite a couple. By quite a couple, I do mean very much none. This is very much still in the spirit of the post-1986 DC books, not really having page numbers for their collected editions. Of course, that can all change in due time. So what is Scooby Apocalypse, and why did I say earlier in this video that I was super surprised that this came out in omnibus format? Back in 2016, DC decided to relaunch a good amount of their main superhero entity titles like Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, etc. Into a little pocket and shared off universe that was called the Hannah-Barbera universe, if you may. Dan Didio said that he wanted to relaunch or launch that universe in particular to really focus efforts on some of the characters that they knew that they already had on hand, that figured we can print out a couple of great comics from this line, get people involved, and really just find a way to re-energize a lot of these books. I will also say before I do move on that the paper quality on this omnibus isn't the glossy type. I've already had a couple of instances. I was reading this on the train to class, and some, maybe just because of my clumsy fingers, but some of the pages decided to crumple themselves on me. So not the strongest paper quality, but still happy that this omnibus has been released. But nonetheless, like I was saying, back with the very, very big notion of this brand new Hanna-Barbera universe, we had a couple of books that launched out from it, including Mark Russell's The Flintstones, which was one of two books that I read from this Hanna-Barbera initiative. That ended up being one of my favorite books that year. You also had this book called Future Quest, and the only reason that I had read Future Quest, and this was 2 or 3 years after the concepts launched, was because Doc Shaner was on art. I really, really enjoyed what I had seen of Doc Shaner in the pages of Convergent Shazam, and I figured, well, if there's something else that has, Johnny Quest and whatnot, if they're gonna place out titles from these different lines, well, I figured why not try that out. But for whatever reason, and this is particularly because we, at least at my comic shop, we placed the media property slash they didn't appear in a comic book, the characters that first appeared on television or in movies in a different part of the shop. So I was just completely unaware that there was a Scooby ongoing at the time. I had started buying single issues right around the time that this book was coming out. So this really does feel like it's a brand new experience for me as somebody who had never really had a connection with all of this. So lo and behold, on a stream when we were looking at some of the upcoming books, I said, why wasn't this just a compendium? Not knowing who was involved in this book. I had known that Jim Lee, drew the cover, obviously. I had known that DeMatteis and Keith Giffen, the all-star, the superstar guys on Justice League International, I knew that they had been on it. But to what extent of involvement, as far as the entirety of this book is concerned, I was just completely unaware of everything that happened in this specific book. So here I am talking about Scooby Apocalypse. What's it about? Why should you even remotely care about this title? And have we gotten anything cool since? Have we gotten anything cooler in the minds of Scooby since the release of this book? Now, my connection with Scooby-Doo has always been they had a lot of reruns on Boomerang when I was a kid. I sadly wasn't into the franchise as many other people were, but if it was on, I wouldn't oppose myself to watching it. It was just never one of the shows that really had me gravitating towards when I was a kid. So as far as my connection with Scooby is concerned, I always liked the characters. Velma was always my favorite since I was a kid because it was super easy for me to relate with her and her character as sort of the socially awkward outcast of the five, if you will. But as far as me being tied into these characters, not in the same way as I would with the '05 Teen Titans of 2003. This was definitely been, I wouldn't call it a soft spot like other people did. But when I had the opportunity to read the book, I heard from people that maybe it's a little bit better than some others were expecting. And I looked at the two writers and I said, well, I like Keith Giffen a lot. I like DeMatteis a lot. Let me go ahead and give it a try. And so here it is. This is the Scooby Apocalypse Omnibus. Jim Lee had created the Hannah-Barbera concept, and from that concept, we had this premise of what if Scooby-Doo was placed in a completely different world where maybe they weren't doing like the ghost hunt, like Ghostbusters types of mysteries, but what if they were set in a post-apocalyptic landscape, incidentally created by one of their own five. In this world, we don't have Fred and Velma and Shaggy completely being friends. They aren't friends to start this book. This is a complete, and when I mean complete, I mean a thorough reimagining of the Scooby-Doo universe and its Doo line. This is a completely brand new story. If you have never read or watched any Scooby-Doo, have never read any of the tie-in comics, they ran for such a long time. They're always in one of the back spots of my shop. Or if you have never watched any of the cartoons, you're not going to be lost by this. This is a completely redone origin for all of the main characters, and this is something that is completely brand new and antithetical to what I would suppose a regular Scooby-Doo story will take you in. This is 36 issues, 920 pages at $125 retail for this 3-year running long comic book story that, again, takes our characters into a completely brand new light that we have never really seen them in before. What happens when you don't have these five completely being on the same page for quite some time? What happens? Like, what is the main purpose for this redoing and retelling of their origin stories? Well, for one, we are set in a landscape that everything is supposed to be fine. Everything is supposed to be fine. Everything is supposed to be as glamorous as can be. We have Velma sitting on the top of a porch just trying to recite as many cool things about herself and that she was on top of the world. And we get cuts to Fred and Daphne who may not be together, but they are enjoying themselves at a fair. Everything is fine and dandy. But unfortunately, things go haywire when we figure out that somebody has let loose on this world. Suddenly, there are these weird creatures that are attacking regular civilians and whatnot. And again, like, these brand new origins will give you different details for our characters. So, for example, Velma is this incredibly smart and sophisticated scientist who works at this area that's called the Complex. We find out that she's part of a thing called Project Elysium. And this Project Elysium is supposedly going to give the world at a chance for elongated peace, the final stoppage in terms of, well, human death and everything else alike. It is a promise to the rest of mankind that everything is going to be better, everything is going to be okay, everything is going to be just as well as possible, so that we are introduced to Velma in that setting. We're introduced to Daphne, who is also this sort of camera crew person, and also very much alongside being part of the media. She is a very well-fashioned, if you may, a television host who just happens to be running around with Fred, who have been intertwined and interlinked since the days of high school. And we get to find a little bit more about them and their relationship, how they, as characters are, how they react to situations in just a short amount of time in the first arc of the story. We also get introduced to a brand new version of Shaggy that is definitely completely different than the one that I watched on Boomerang and Cartoon Network when I was a kid. This is not the Shaggy who feels, I mean, he does, I don't want to say hobo, but he is kind of, he doesn't have a great fashion sense, I will say that. But the Shaggy that I know definitely isn't as hipster and as hippie as this version of Shaggy is. This is a completely redone version of the character, and I think it makes sense with the story beat. Now, the funny part, at least to me, is seeing all the different interpretations that some of the artists have with Shaggy. So, for example, Howard Porter does a majority of the first 6 issues in terms of its illustration, and then we have a couple of guest artists who roll in right after. And the most interesting thing I find is the way that his hair is just different in its complexion and its styling. I think that what this book has actually allowed the illustrators on here, whether it is Tom Mandrake, whether it's Pat Olive, whether it's Dale Eaglesham, who I was completely surprised. Like, I didn't even know that he had any hand in this book. You know, I had known him from his illustrations on Shazam, and also his illustrations on Hickman's Fantastic Four. Now, if you had told me that he drew a Scooby-Doo comic, I would have laughed at you, as we are looking at Dale Eaglesham art right now. But sometimes I find it interesting that the artist will give, for example, Shaggy an earring. Howard Porter gives him one, and Dale Eaglesham doesn't. But you get to see... And honestly, I think this is a testament to the strength of its book rather than a detriment. These, you know, they all have different styles. They all have different ways of expressing themselves with their wear. And if you're in an apocalypse, well, obviously our main characters are going to wear nearly the same things. But I do find it very fun to see just how these different artists tackle the looks of Scooby-Doo. Same in the way of whenever somebody on a short fill-in story managed to do the same. And Scooby-Doo obviously is front and center, as he should be. He is the best dog. I hope that I'm not offending anybody by saying that I love Crypto. I love Ace the Bat Hound, but man, I will admit one thing, and that is that Scooby-Doo really is the best when it comes to the interaction for these characters. And we also get a brand new, different story for him as well. One thing that this series has in particular that kind of makes it different from the rest are the backups to some of the issues where it allows Keith Giffen and James DeMatteis, or somebody else for the matter of fact, to flesh out this brand new world by giving us moments that, if they can't explain why this character is acting the way they are in a particular issue, they will take 6 to 8 pages after that to explain, okay, so this is how Scooby came to be. This is a brand new character that we're being introduced to who's going to be part of perhaps the main plot. Or maybe it's the secret origin of another character that just might have to be a little bit of a big handle against our heroes. But there are a couple of things that I will address here that makes me want to say an apology. It makes me want to apologize for saying that this book should have been a compendium. Number one is that I think that this book has no right to be as compelling as this one. And I say this interestingly, particularly in the case of two things. The first is that whenever I fancied myself the Scooby-Doo, and this was back when I was a kid, maybe it's just my memories being a little bit broken, I always thought of Scooby and the gang as just like the fun guys you just decide to hang around with. They get into some trouble. They go in a van that just decides to go around town. Like, I think of them as the Ghostbusters, but for kids. Again, maybe I'm being disingenuous, but that's what they always have felt like to me when I was a kid. They don't feel like that here. They are really compelling characters in a completely brand new sense of, again, their reimagining allows Keith Giffen and Jim DeMatteis to add some layers to that, especially if they are running around in the wilderness and trying to kill off as many zombies as they can. It allows for those characters to be played around with. They are different in that aspect. But more importantly, it does give Giffen and DeMatteis some leeway to work with in making this a soap opera that has no right to be as good as it is. This is really what I think drew me to every single page that I had flipped in this book. There is always something going on with the characters. There are conflicts because these characters don't know each other from the onset. They aren't exactly friends to start out with. There are a lot of hostile things that they say to one another. And by the way, this book, I would definitely not give it to your kid. There are not swearing words, but there are a couple of words that skirt the line, like, you know, the word that means the person's behind is said a little bit often in this book. A word that you could replace condemn with is also used a little bit often with some of these characters as well. This is definitely not a for all ages book in that case, I will say. And there's also another issue too where I am 100% certain that Giffen and DeMatteis ripped out of Queen Sonia. That you probably have seen me flipping through very early on in this book. So again, just as a notice, there is stuff here that I would not give to a kid. That being said, the conflicts and everything else alike between these characters makes the overall narrative stronger. You have these 5 characters that just don't know what to do. You have one of these characters, you have one of my childhood favorite, at least from what I remember, being incredibly burdened with something that happens to her. Something happens with Velma and that Velma's been working on that upsets the entirety of the gang. You have characters who are weary of one another because, well, they just met. How do they know that they haven't been infected and became a zombie in this apocalyptic universe? Why on earth are these characters acting the way that they are? Well, I do believe that, again, because it is a brand new universe, it gives the freedom for Jim DeMatteis and Keith Giffen to do whatever it is that they please with these characters, and it leads to a lot of heartbreak. It leads to a lot of trauma. And some of these characters have to make tough decisions too. One thing that is an overall cross-theme throughout the pages of this book is the thought that, well, are the characters that they are shooting, are they actually dead, or can they be redeemed? We have multiple instances where some characters just feel afraid of getting into the crossfire with these zombies. What if they knew them from when they were in high school? if there is a semblance, there are plenty of moments where our characters have to make incredibly tough decisions because of the setting that they're faced in. It isn't just, I'm throwing myself out there just for the sake of it. I want to, get as many KOs as you would think in a Call of Duty game. Again, apologies because I grew up with some of those Call of Duty zombie modes, but that's all they're thinking of as characters because they don't want to just wipe off the face of the universe. After all, like, they all believe in a better sense of humanity in one way or another. Even Scooby wants to have friends for all. And we get to see Scooby get just heartwarming moments between him and the ensemble of this cast. It really does dig down to the essence of what makes humanity awesome. And that I truly believe that's what makes this book function as well as it does, when, again, it just has no right to. If you would have told me early on that I would be enjoying a Scooby comic, at the age of, I'm trying to get my master's degree, and it's been so weird just to see myself be enthralled with a premise that seems just, it's pedestrian, right? Scooby-Doo and his friends are part of the apocalypse, and they need to make sure that they survive to the end. That is in my mind, before reading this, it was the equivalent of how many points can I get in Call of Duty before the zombies eventually get to me when I am down to the last bullet in my pistol. I'm so glad it's not the case, and again, you have a lot of strong artwork, and you also have backups too, with Adam Ant and also an agent who is a squirrel. This has also given Heath Corson and the creators that he's worked with on some of these issues to really make some comedic beats as well. Scooby does not only have some heartwarming moments, he has very light and tender moments because he is Scooby and he wants to make sure that his friends are all right. It does make you, it gives you a bit of a chuckle. And the same goes again for Heath Corson's backups that feature some of these characters. Some of these characters want to do certain things because they are connected. And like you saw with the Superman creator credit to the Jerry Siegel estates and the family, that they also do have their roundabouts in here as well. So everybody gets a bit of a shine as far as this book is concerned. And to avoid the end, because I don't want to tease and spoil, I'm trying to keep it as non-spoilery as possible for all of you guys. Let's go ahead and get to the end of the book, where we have some of the sketchbooks and the bonus material as we say hello to Velma again. The way that this book is structured, we do have some of the variant covers in between pages. Of course, there are no page breaks. Like the cover, I guess I would say, like in between issues, we do have the covers shown, and in the back we do have the variants without the text, just the credits on the top left and top right. So one by Ben Caldwell, Dan Panosian. Very interesting to see Dan, go from this to doing absolute variants and everything else alike. Here is one by Neil Adams and Alex Sinclair with Fred, and then Daphne on the left hand side with Joel Jones and Nick Filardi on colors. Howard Porter and Hi-Fi, who of course are the main creative team on that first arc. All of the artists, and they rotate. Howard Porter eventually would go on to do some Flash issues with Joshua Williamson and Scott Snyder's Justice League. And then on the right-hand side, you have Kara Andrews. And on the left-hand side, we got a pinup by Susan Kudransky. And then on the right, we have by Juan Ferreira. Shaggy and Scooby, character sketch done by Jim Lee. Another variant sketch done by Jim Lee with Velma. Cannot believe that Jim Lee thought this out as well. We got one here. Daphne, of course, and then Fred. And then the Mystery Machine. Yes, the Mystery Machine in this specific book is not the same hippie 70s truck. Again, apologies for being disingenuous. On the right-hand side, we do have one by Howard Porter. All these turnarounds by Howard Porter. Velma by Howard Porter. Daphne by Howard Porter. Fred by Howard Porter. The Gang all by Howard Porter. You got the Velma character design by Chris Batista. The Secret Squirrel, agent that I was talking about earlier, done by Howard Porter. And Carlos de Anda done for a monster design. I find this one interesting. I guess this is the slide spoilers. On the cover for the specific issue that Velma does show up in that, like I said, I'm pretty sure they took some pages out from Queen Sonia. She is fully clothed in this one. This one showing her midriff, but again, that's just my eyes gleaming. On the right-hand side, we got a sketch done for a variant done by Ivan Reyes. And then a Scooby Apocalypse with the process done by Ron Wagner, who also illustrated a part of issue number 9. Dale Eaglesham inks. Again, super surprised to see Dale Eaglesham. Dale Eaglesham would eventually go on to illustrate parts of Jeff Johns' Shazam run when that came about in 2019. This is part of a backup that features a brand new character that I will not spoil. You will have to read for yourself, but they are very integral to the plot of this book. Sketch done on the right-hand side. On the left-hand side, we got cover sketches done by Howard Porter and Hi-Fi. On the right-hand side, we do have Nick Bradshaw. Cully Hamner on inks for issue number 14 for the variant and the part of the process there. Emmanuel Lupacchino, one of my favorite artists, on the variant cover pencils there on the right-hand side. Belquist Evely, who has been everywhere. She was doing Sugar and Spike up at this point with Keith Giffen as well. And these are the covers done for her variant for issue 20. On the left-hand side, we got Dale Eaglesham, Ron Wagner on the right-hand side. And then left-hand side, we got Pat Olive, who was the last main artist on the book. One thing I would also like to mention, for some of the creator credits, they do list like funny tags for some of the creators. Of course, you got to keep the gag on. Same here with Pat Olive pencils. And then here on the left-hand side, you got ink swell. And that is a creepy image of Fred. Wonder what he's doing with Daphne. And that, as they say, is Scooby Terrific. Now, if you want to pick up Scooby Apocalypse, I know you do, please check out our sponsors.
If you're in Europe and you're interested in buying these books, definitely check out Walt's Comic Shop in Berlin, Germany. They have the cheapest pre-order prices, flat shipping rate of €12 for all EU countries, emails answered within 24 hours, waltscomicshop.com, and you can use the code nearmintcondition at checkout and get free shipping for all EU countries with your first order over €40. That's Walt's Comic Shop, your reliable source for omnis and premium collected editions in Europe. Ding!
CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more.
And that is going to be it from me. Please let me know down in the comments section if you have read any of Scooby Apocalypse or have watched Scooby or are interested. I would love to know your feedback in the comment section below. That is it from me. I'm Dom of X. Please stay safe, everybody, and have a Scooby-Doo-rific day wherever you may be.